Hi everyone. So first of all, I want to start with, since we were talking about a lot of all things AI on hiring, on product, I think one of the unique things about our panel is that people are coming from different sectors. I want to maybe break things a little bit on maybe each of the investors can talk about one thing that they find most exciting in their sector. We have investors who are in enterprise SaaS, in e-tech, in healthcare, and in corp dev. And why don't we start with one thing that you're most excited about in your sector about that? Maybe Sarah, you want to kick off?
Sure, happy to. Hi everyone, I'm Sarah. I'm a general partner at Wing VC. We invest in early stage enterprise tech companies, so Seeds and A's. This is a $620 million fund. But specifically, as Grace alluded to, I'm actually the probably one partner here who's focused on healthcare, the vertical which I lead at Wing. And that's not because my background is in healthcare. Actually, I've been a founder in my past, sold my last mobile data company back in 2017. But more because within enterprise tech, I actually think healthcare is the most exciting opportunity ahead of us. And not just for the altruistic reasons that you might think. I think there needs to be something that's different in America because the reality is access is a big problem. And over a third of Americans today lack access to primary care. And then when you look at the physicians, 40% are above the age of 45. And crazy enough, 20% of our physicians in the United States are 65 plus, 20%. So when they retire, what are we going to do? And so I think the biggest opportunities specifically related to AI are in healthcare in terms of solving the access problem, more continuous diagnosis and intervention.
That's good. Hi everyone, my name is Tushar Gupta. I'm with Qualcomm Ventures. So our investment mandate is quite broad because of what Qualcomm does, so it spans across mobile, automotive, IoT, AI cloud. So in our thesis areas right now, of course, AI is a broader thesis area across every business that we do. One of the things that we're spending a lot of time these days is AI infrastructure for agents. What does that mean for, because we think a lot of Qualcomm's focus is on the edge. We also have chips for the cloud, but a lot of our focus on the edge. And then we think of edge as another inference node, and then that's going to happen. We're going to have a lot more memory on the edge. We're going to have a lot more compute on the edge. And so we're spending a lot of time on AI orchestration and AI infrastructure that spans across cloud and edge. And this is where we think what does it mean to run workloads or AI workloads on edge in terms of reducing latency, in terms of reducing cost, and in terms of even having, there's three vectors typically for any AI agent infrastructure, which is intelligence, cost, and latency. We think that edge will make a lot of sense for latency and cost. So this is where we're spending a lot of time.
Awesome. Hi everyone, my name is Janelle. I'm a partner at Venture Partners. We are a large multi-stage global firm covering all stages and different sector focus. I sit on our early stage team, focus on seed and Series A, and I work primarily with highly technical founders. So the worlds I cover tend to be AI infrastructure, data, developer tooling, and defense. And there is no better time for technical founders in this AI wave. And I love investing in infrastructure at the start of any paradigm shift because there's a thinking that the thesis is that infrastructure layer needs to be somewhat mature before apps can build upon that, and infrastructure companies really are the foundation and the frontier for application ecosystem to blossom. I think there's a lot of thinking that AI infrastructure is played out over the last 5 years. We've seen huge amounts of dollars going to foundation model companies, into model hosting and deployment companies, in model app framework companies, and training technique companies. At Bessemer and myself, we've invested in companies like Anthropic, Fal AI for model hosting and deployment, as well as Moon Valley in the video AI space. So we do have a ton of bets in that wave of core infrastructure. But I posit that that wave is just the first wave. There's now a second story that's coming out of it. So the first wave, how I would describe it, was AI infrastructure that could prove that AI can solve problems. So again, it was about benchmarks, it was about new models coming out. And now we're in the second phase where it's about the last mile delivery of AI in the real world. And this is perhaps even more important than that first phase, because you can't deploy AI in the real world if there isn't infrastructure for reliability, for safety, for context, for memory. And so we're seeing this whole new ecosystem of the second wave of AI infrastructure pop up now, which is where I've been spending a lot of time in.
Great. You said there's never been a better time to be a technical founder, and I was thinking there's also never been a better time to be a non-technical founder, which is a horrible lead-in because I'm a deep tech investor. Hello, I'm Aiden. I'm a general partner at Eclipse Ventures. We have about $5 billion under management. We invest, day zero, we'll work with you to co-found something. We do early stage checks, and we also do growth stage and crossover checks. Our areas of focus are really what I would call physical sectors. So people who are taking on extremely, very audacious, kind of unforgiving problems across manufacturing, energy, supply chain, logistics, defense. Kind of the more dirt under your fingernails, the more intrigued we are at what you're doing. And yeah, we're really happy with any founder that's really got this urgency to go solve these big problems. I guess last thing I'll say is my background is also as an operator, so as executive at a company called CSR for many years. Started, the very earliest days, took a company called switched over here to the dark side. So that's my background. One thing that I'm particularly excited in is this notion of how do we bring the capabilities that we've seen in LLMs and same thing with digital version of AI over to the physical world. There's sort of a bifurcation of views. I will say my view is that the way we do physical AI will not be one general physical AI model to rule them all, but instead very verticalized approaches, like we see with Waymo, for example, in self-driving, a company that's doing autonomous excavation and sort of heavy equipment. So there's more verticalized applications. But there's another partner at Eclipse that's a big believer in the general version. So come on, come all, we're happy to chat.
Hi, I'm Thomas Zhang from Samsung Ventures. I'm Senior Managing Director of the team taking care of investment on platform for smartphone, smart TV, IoT, enterprise solution. So that being said, my area might be a combination of Teresa, Janelle, and regarding how the AI can come through in the real world and real household, right? So from the semiconductor infrastructure up to the ecosystem application play. So being said, we've gone through the same wave of the investment that those people mentioned, but right now we are more on the agentic AI side. So in terms of the dev tool, DevOps, and also some of the agentic full stack approach type of thing. So which can be next generation operating system running on top of the new AI devices. So if you guys have an interesting company working on that area, I'm more than happy to talk.
Oh, sorry. I think I'm mic'd up. Hi, everybody. My name is Clayton Eddy. I'm a partner at Gradient Ventures. We lead early stage AI and ML rounds and to work with great founders. We probably spend something like half of our time in infrastructure and security, and the other half of our time in vertical apps in a pretty wide range of categories. I think one of the things that I've been most excited about is that on the vertical SaaS side of things, the market is ready and excited about bringing on pretty sophisticated AI products in a way that it wasn't a long time ago. In 2020, most companies were 50-ish% of the way on cloud. The pandemic accelerated that, and now even a mid-sized logistics business is 80-90% on cloud. And so the adoption and the corresponding revenue that these AI startups are able to generate in traditionally very hairy, heavy verticals that are slow to integrate and adopt new software has been really astonishing. And so I think it's a phenomenal time to be building in a hairy, ugly, heavy vertical industry, and building to help them transform their whole business. So.
Hey everyone, I'm Ganesh Bell with Insight Partners. We're one of the largest software investors in the world, greater than 80 billion under assets under management. About here? Oh, good. Okay. So Well, as an ex-founder, operator, turned investor, for me, everything's interesting right now. All the superset, that's what we really do. We're truly global, multi-stage. From early stage to we can take a large company private, and we do everything in growth equity. But the characteristics that is super interesting is not categories, not necessarily defining companies by infra versus apps versus models. And I think some of the takes are accurate. I think there's too much over rotation to the game's over, agents are everything. Agents just one primitive building block. That's it. Okay, we've just yet to come up with 10 other primitive building blocks to build a lot of things. But I would argue that pretty much most of the building blocks needed to reimagine things are already here. And the single most interesting thing right now is reimagination. And it is not technology, it's lack of imagination or the ability to reimagine things is what's super interesting. And that means every category is open game. Incumbents are really, really smart this time around, but there are a lot of categories incumbents are not going to win. And so you have to go category by category, but I think it's the ability to reimagine. In some categories, you can be good enough and win. You don't have to be the greatest. In some categories, you have to absolutely nail being the best. So entrepreneurs who are tuned into that and using this moment to understand where that reimagination moment is possible, up or down the stack, down in deep tech or in enterprise, I think that's really where the biggest interesting thing is for us.
Wait, actually, this is such an interesting point. You mentioned like some of the startups may not need to be the best to win. This is like such an interesting topic because I was moderating iFly VC Summit for it's a consumer summit, and then the former CEO of BigCommerce said on our panel, he said he think fintech is not the best place to apply AI because you don't want your bank to hallucinate some numbers here. And there is, for example,
For him, healthcare is actually a really amazing thing to apply AI. So I wonder what is a subsector that you guys are really bullish about, and then what is the subsector that you guys are thinking this may not, we don't need to be the best to win.
They don't want the bank hallucinating some numbers in the
I don't know if, like I said, everything is interesting, and reimagination is probably the most interesting thing. But we're just going sector. I would use examples like say, I used to be a entrepreneur, founder, operator, growing up in enterprise software. I would always used to say, even when I was in one of the biggest companies, enterprise software is a game of who sucks less. Okay, you just really have to suck less than the other person. There's a giant tower here. There's not a whole lot of people that love using that software. You just have to suck less than them. That's it. And you win. Whereas that's not what you can do in drug discovery or where physics meets AI or in some hard tech industries where the value of a prediction needs to be incredibly high and the precision needs to be super high, right? The value is high, precision needs to be high. You need to be super good in that. Right, so you need to understand what game you have to play, but I think the expectations now is everything needs to be consumer grade isn't actually true. In some hard areas, right, understanding where to augment human intelligence and consume the right workflows is super good enough. And there are industries where just applying low-hanging machine learning is good enough. In fact, while all the hype and everything is around generative AI, we're still seeing good basic machine learning and data science being applied to industries and actually applications being built with intelligence as a first-class citizen for the very first time is good enough in many areas. So I think people don't understand good enough in a lot of cases, and in some cases the existing technologies are not good enough to apply in deep science, for example.
If you don't mind, Grace mentioned about fintech, and in your previous panel, you said that fintech might not be the right one to talk about AI because of the hallucination. But I think in a different way of fintech, I see a very great chance of leveraging the AI, not from the traditional fintech perspective, but from the stablecoin perspective, considering the necessity of the right infrastructure to come up with agent-to-agent transaction layer. And stablecoin itself carried all the characteristics to convey that technology coming into the market. So that being said, it little kind of off from the traditional definition of fintech, but stablecoin plus the AI is a very interesting area, growing, and I think most of us taking a look at those the players in the market and think about how this player can pan out their solution and how that can combine with the agent, AI agentic world coming.
I mean, I will say, from the perspective of a physical AI investor, I mean, how about the jobs that take the most lives every year, right? Construction is an extremely lethal industry. And while it's something like 50% of all the spend in construction goes towards labor, it's been one of the industries that's been the hardest to penetrate with technology, period, let alone advanced technologies, autonomy, et cetera. I do see cracks in that surface. I do see us getting things like autonomous excavation, bulldozing, things like that, which is great because the fewer people you have actually on site, the more people you have, pressing the button, doing the planning, being able to navigate the systems and doing higher value-added jobs, also jobs that are just less hazardous, period. The same thing is true of, some of the more laborious warehousing work or manufacturing site work where you're simply moving things from one thing to another part of the facility. You can get hit by a forklift. You're breathing in fumes that are not particularly healthy for you. So, I'm excited about pretty ready AI applications in those spaces for more purpose-built vertical physical AI. And I think that's here now.
Yeah, I mean, maybe one more point to add there is just, I don't know that many of us would stand up here and say that you can become like a multi-billion-dollar product by being good enough. But I think that there are areas that can be better than others in your product. And the hard part about all this with a non-deterministic user interface or user experience that's powered by an LLM is that it's very difficult to figure out like what a good enough product is for your users in that world. And so ChatGPT and the code gen assistants like greatly benefited from the fact that you can just suggest something every time a user enters a key, and if it works 10% of the time, then that's still valuable. But if you are an AI scribe for a doctor, that doesn't really fly if it's making mistakes. And so, the question that each company has to address is like, what is good enough in the category that I'm building, and where should I differentiate outside of that?
I think, Tushar, you want to add something?
I can add on the physical AI. I think the one which is I'm spending a lot of time in physical AI as well these days. I think the most interesting part, so I've been part of this robotics industry for a long time. I've sold a lot of our products to ABBs and KUKAs of the world that essentially have robot arms that move things from one place to another, and they do it really, really well. The most interesting part over the last 2 years, like a lot of us are probably going and seeing all these demos of humanoid companies or new world model companies. I think, and then you see all these innovations with vision language action models, and you see all these innovations with generalization, but when you see a demo, essentially you're seeing a demo of a robot folding clothes or folding a box. And then you would say that, okay, how does this generalize from here to all the tasks that it has to do in your industrial environment or home environment? And then you could be really skeptical if you see that. I think the key, as I notice this, one of the big trends that I'm seeing is the pace of innovation across everything here is really, really fast. So like for that example, if you take a look at the communication layer, EtherCAT, if you take a look at the OS, ROS 2 is much better than the previous version of ROS. And then not just that, with VLAs, the pace of innovation of these robots being, like 6 months later, you're seeing something that wasn't possible at all 6 months before. I think the compounding effect of these robots, it feels like maybe 2 years from now, all of us will wake up one day and then we'll see all these robots doing a lot of generalized tasks. So that's what's exciting to me. It's in physical AI.
And that opens a lot of edge compute too.
It does. I mean,
right?
I think most of that will have to happen.
We don't have a great stack for edge compute yet, right? So a lot of these things are going to be created, and that's super fascinating. Yeah.
Speaking of physical AI, I guess like one of the most exciting things is like those like robots that I feel like a lot of people would, I guess like some of these like biggest investment are in robotics as well as like I guess like the people are really loving the unsexy industry again. So I wonder, but all of these like deep tech industry are actually costing a lot of money to produce these robots, right? So as a small angel investor in some of the robotics companies, I personally find like it's really hard to evaluate a company because of like so many hardware company might be challenging to survive due to the capital constraint. What as investors, what would be your suggestion for them in terms of fundraising, and how do you evaluate them in terms of valuations?
Yeah, I'll jump in, and I feel like I'm talking too much, so I'll stop after that. But because you asked a physical AI question, so maybe not. Listen, people skin their knees the first time we try something new, and all this technology is built on waves of previous technology, right? So, for example, the team I back that does the construction work, these are a team of executives, technology leaders, and business leaders out of Waymo and Uber Freight, right? They've been part of self-driving for a decade plus. They have DARPA robotics backgrounds, right? Like they've seen the waves and waves of technology layers, the advances in LiDAR, the things that have come before them to allow for a tech stack now that's going to cost, $40,000 to make an autonomous excavation unit versus 500,000, right? And the concept is as the cost curve gets pushed forward by some of the advances you're talking about, you should be able to do these things built on smarter and smarter layers. We've got more infrastructure in place, right? So all of these waves are compounding on each other. It's not to say you should never be a first mover in the physical world. Fortune also favors the bold, but there's certainly lessons that can be learned when you're piecing things together and you have the ability to like kind of compound on those waves, is what I'd say.
Still focusing on data, right? So data is the key for training, and then think about simulation, and then going forward, whether the real world data is enough or the synthetic data is good enough to have that training happen. That's the kind of the thought process starting, and then moving forward, what's gonna be the next? It's gonna be the hand. If it is a hand, what type of the hand? What's the use cases? That type of the thought process is kind of happening in the market right now. I guess I cannot talk about Samsung, but.
Yeah, it's, if you look at, when we look at physical AI, I like to look at things where someone can solve a full problem. And like you talked about, there are a lot of hard industries where the greatest and the most talented AI engineers are not going to rush into. Right? So you can have a captive, good set of people that work on a particular problem, like mining, like you talked about, right? That would require deep domain, and you need to be able to marry that. So you need to be able to solve a full problem. Like robotics, the problem is that everybody's solving, like in the autonomous world, somebody can turn left better than somebody else, right? And somebody can merge onto freeways better. That's what we're seeing in the physical robotics world right now. So it's hard to do early stage bets unless you can see someone solve a full problem, a full solution in a particular domain. Then you can actually I think that's the hardest problem, is everybody's in generalization of teaching what to do with these machines. We don't even know what the form factor of these machines are going to look like. And then we're already talking about models that are foundational models for the next generation robotics. And then we're talking about data, then we're talking about simulation, then we're talking about tech stacks, and you get like, all right, there's only 2 or 3 companies that can do that end to end, right? So if you're going to be a startup in early stage, solve the full problem, solve the whole problem, be able to go deploy it.
I think that pertains not only to physical AI, but I would say that for like other AI as well.
True.
Maybe we'll wrap with what is an AI robot that you want in your house? Sarah is dying to answer.
I'm happy to go. I'm happy to answer this one. So I think it's interesting that we keep talking about these generalized categories, like physical AI, robotics, etc. And yet, I heard, and at some point it will mimic a hand, and then it translates into a whole other sector where, in order to mimic a hand, you kind of need to know biology and movement and all these other things. So when I think about robotics or whatever technology that I get really excited by, I try to caution myself and maybe have a bigger imagination. I love that point. To not be constrained to think about, okay, robots, what do robots look like? What do robots do? Or my world of healthcare, it's not just, hey, can we replace a doctor? It's, hey, what fundamental problem are we trying to solve here? And in enterprise tech, it's, hey, what outcome are we trying to steer towards? And then what's in your toolbox of potential solutions that you can put together. And you know what? I bet you in the future, most solutions will have some physical component. Most will have AI. Most will have, I will do a quick plug, biology or some element, or psychology, some element of human health. And so for me, if I'm going to think about what robot would I want in my life, well, I'll think about what's my big problem in life. For me, I would point to a longevity solution, but again, I'm biased and all that. And in terms of what form factor that might look, personally, I get excited by the idea of potentially being able to grow babies in artificial wombs, considering I am approaching the age of 40. Again, a deeply personal problem, and that is, physical. Is that a robot? I don't know, but there you have my thoughts.
I think all of us are going to have a humanoid in our lifetime. It's going to happen soon. At least all of us who live here, like nerds, right? We're going to have one. But the thing that I'm most
can grow a baby with an artificial womb, maybe.
But the thing that I'm most excited about is actually smart home finally working. I already live in a robot, and I've had to write a lot of scripts with 130 plus devices, all wired together. That may actually work pretty soon.
Second that.
Samsung, what's happening?
The Boston Dynamics robot dog. I want the robot dog. It's here today.
Goddard.
Dance for me.
So the fastest adoption would be the new Alexa, I guess. So that would be
Alexa,
the
the
low-hanging
new
fruit.
Gemini. I think Gemini for home. I'm a Gemini for home guy.
This panel, please make it happen,
Apple
okay?
just fixed HomeKit. It's very easy.
Yeah, no
Such a
shot.
low-hanging fruit.
Well, on that note, what do you want for the robot to do in your home, guys? Think about that, okay? Until the next panel in 5 minutes. Go to the bathroom, okay?